Look, I would never hurt anybody. You got the wrong guy.
Scream 7 is the latest entry to the Scream franchise, directed by Kevin Williamson and starring Neve Campbell, Courteney Cox, and Isabel May. And if you are unfamiliar with me or my channel, Scream is my favorite horror franchise of all time. I got a Ghostface tattoo on my neck. Every single time one of these movies comes out, it's like an event for me. And with Scream 5, it was just exciting to see that this thing was being rebooted again. And then going into Scream 6, seeing the Carpenter sisters, their story grow. I was very excited about that. But with Scream 7, it's like the hype hit a new level because we are turning this thing back to focus on Sidney Prescott. And I was stoked, but I was also really nervous because movies are a hard thing to make, and sometimes when things seem too good to be true, that is exactly what they are. And so tonight, I tried to walk in and watch this movie with as blank of a slate as I possibly could. I just wanted to see what this thing was all about. But truly, if I ever had a doubt, if I ever had a worry, this movie proved me wrong around every single turn. Oh my gosh, this movie's amazing. And so what is up, my friends? My name is Danny. Welcome to Jones Vibes. Today I am reviewing Scream 7. I do want to let you know off the top, this will be a spoiler-free review, so don't worry about that. I'm not going to ruin anything for you. Also, as always, make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments section. Your opinion is always welcome around here, and I would love to know what you thought about this movie. But without further ado, let's talk Scream 7. So the synopsis reads, when a new Ghostface killer emerges in the town where Sidney Prescott has built a new life, her darkest fears are realized as her daughter becomes the next target. And I think that right there is what automatically makes this movie so compelling. You're bringing Sidney Prescott back, but you're giving her a daughter who is the age that she was when all of this started. And my God, could they have not picked a better actress than Isabel May to play this? I'm gonna dive into the cast here in just a moment, but truly, first impressions of this film upon walking out, I was just saying to myself, wow, I wasn't ready for that movie. It surprised the absolute hell out of me. Because this movie is a classic Scream movie. Scream is written all over this thing. There are plenty of Easter eggs, plenty of nostalgia, plenty of nods, but it's also probably the most cinematic Scream movie that we've ever gotten. And that's not a cinematography thing, that's not a score thing, although those were great. This is a story thing. We had really, really compelling characters to work with here. And when you have the legacy that Sidney Prescott is carrying into this thing, having her interact with this family, it just adds an emotional weight that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to get freaking choked up and teary-eyed in this movie. I've never gotten teary-eyed in a Scream movie. Also, it has everything you want from a Scream movie, and Ghostface is probably the most brutal that we've ever seen him. Sure, there have been some other really gory moments that happen in other movies. The most recent movies, however, there are some really gory moments, but the characters don't even die. In this movie, nobody is safe. They are not afraid to go there. Every single person in the cast that you see is on the chopping block. You have no idea what's going to happen. Ghostface is just ruthless here, man. I would compare it to Scream 1 and Scream 2, and that's when you get the legacy kind of bleeding into this thing. But I do want to talk about some of these cast members, some of the key cast members. There are a lot of them within this cast, which makes for a great Scream movie, but the one that I do want to highlight right off the top is somebody I already talked about, Isabel May, and she's playing Tatum Evans. And I just gotta give this girl props, man, because it is not an easy thing to step into a role like this and play the daughter of somebody as iconic as Sidney Prescott, you know what I mean? And Neve Campbell. What she's done with that performance over the years, the character that she has created, the legacy that she's created. When you're looking at the daughter, she's not just playing another one-off character that has some sort of association with the franchise. This truly is the blood. This is family, and there are problems that creates, and what Isabel May manages to do with this performance, I think a lot of the emotional stuff that hit me on a deep level was due to the scenes between her and Sidney. I also want to talk about freaking Courteney Cox. She was so good in this movie as Gale Weathers. It felt unique. I loved what they did with her in Scream 6. That was one of those moments. That was a big moment for Gale's character. But coming back, we actually start to get to see some of the brokenness of the character, especially after the passing of Dewey. You know what I mean? We catch up with Gale, and we get to spend a little bit of time with her character. And as a fan of the franchise, I was just thankful for those moments. You know what I mean? But even with the introduction of a bunch of new characters and all this stuff, this movie really does center around Sidney Prescott, and Neve Campbell was phenomenal with the time that she had with the character, dude, like coming back and just bodying this performance. It paved the way for hopefully more movies in this franchise and more with Sidney at the center, because she deserves it and she's so great at it. The minute that you see her as the main character again in a Scream movie, you're just like, yes, this makes sense. There also was the whole thing about Patrick Dempsey not being able to return as Mark, as the love interest, and So they got Mark Evans, played by Joel McHale. And so it's kind of just like a new love interest that we've never seen. This is her husband. But there are a couple key moments at the beginning where they set up that chemistry, and they're great together. And I love freaking Joel McHale. He's so funny in this, and he's just charming. You can tell that he looks at Sidney, and she is the light of his life, but he doesn't understand the history. He doesn't understand where she comes from at all. So it's kind of a bit of a shock when Ghostface turns up. But you also have people like Anna Camp, you have Celeste O'Connor, they turn in great performances. You have Mckenna Grace, who by far has the best set piece, I think, in the movie for me. It was so great. Mckenna Grace, I would compare her in this movie to Sarah Michelle Gellar in Scream 2. It very much gave off that vibe, and I was like, let's go, dude. Like, a new young icon for young people that are getting into this franchise to look up to and look at and be like, dang, dude, like, the Scream franchise is so cool. I hope young people are saying this. But it also wouldn't be a Scream movie nowadays without Chad and Mindy, man. And Chad and Mindy coming back, like freaking Mason Gooding and Jasmin Savoy Brown, it was so great to see them. I didn't really know where they were going to fit in because obviously they don't have the core four in this movie, and so it might feel a little bit different. It might feel a little bit disjointed, but I'll tell you what, them working alongside Gale Weathers was absolutely the perfect choice, and also having them in this movie just provided that context that the viewer needed, as well as just the connection that I feel like a lot of people are going to want if they're starting the franchise with 5 and 6. But I want to talk about some of the good and some of the bad. With the good, I just want to say that the opening of this film is probably my favorite opening since Scream 1. It was very, very unique. It was also very, very sincere. I'd also say, and I think I already talked about this a little bit, but how brutal Ghostface in this movie and how creative some of the kills are, it reminded me of Scream 1 with the garage door, you know, and Tatum getting caught in the garage door. There are a couple of those that were so iconic in this film that I'm never going to forget, whereas some of the other installments in this franchise, you're like, oh, how did he die again? Like, there are a couple of them in this movie that it's like, no, I know, I'll always remember how they died. Also, and this is something that might not matter to a lot of people out there, but for me, music is half of the story. Music is half of the movie. And when it came to those first 4 films, they were all composed and scored by the same guy. His name is Marco Beltrami. And it made me well up. You notice straight from the beginning of this movie that he's back. And that's something that makes it feel like Scream again. You can't take, it's like having Star Wars without John Williams, right? Not to compare Marco to John Williams, but this guy is great. He understands the Scream franchise, and there's something that the score of a film does to place you back in that world that is just unlike anything else. And so I was so happy to see him back. I hope other people notice that, and I hope other people like that, man, because the score is so good. But lastly, with the good, and I've been waiting to talk about this, having Kevin Williamson direct this film, it was such a brilliant idea. Having the creator of Scream helm this thing, you know what I mean? Usher in a new era of Scream. It was unbelievable. He is a great director, you know, and this guy has a very long filmography, but when he was attached to the Scream franchise, it was all Wes Craven, you know what I mean? And Wes Craven got a lot of that notoriety, but Scream is Kevin Williamson's baby. He understands this franchise like no other, and it was one of those things, kind of like Marco being back, that you could feel that heartbeat straight from the opening shot, and you knew that you were set. And then having him combine this vision with Neve Campbell, who was an executive producer on this film, and just making one glorious Scream movie for the fans, it was awesome. It was rock star shit. It really was. And I hope that they can just do more of them. I hope they can make 8 and 9, at least give us a trilogy, please. But moving on to some of my criticisms, some of the bad with this film, I would say that the mother-daughter thing that's happening in this film is so freaking amazing, or at least it was to me. That story arc that's happening, it almost takes away from some of the other stuff that they're trying to do with this film. So you're introducing this big cast of characters, and you want to care about them, and so you almost feel like in the writing, those small moments with those characters, they really try to just get a lot of exposition in, because you only have a couple moments to get to know these guys, you know what I mean? And I feel like that ties into kind of the only other negative that I had with the film was just the set pieces were so amazing, and there were so many of them, so we were very lucky with that. But the set pieces weren't long enough. Like, I wanted so much more out of some of the set pieces because they were so well designed, so well done. If each of them could last 15 minutes, if each of them could last as long as the opening sequence did, I would have been in heaven. But it is what it is, and at the end of the day, this movie does need to move forward. And eventually we do, and we get to the third act of the film. And typically with the Scream movie, the third act is always going to be the divisive one, and that stems all the way back to Scream 1. I would say the most divisive one that we had was Scream 3, because there was drama behind the scenes, whether the girl that was in there was supposed to be Ghostface or not. It ended up just being Roman Bridger. In this movie, I truly felt like I had no idea who the killer was going to be. There were a lot of leaks online. There were a lot of people trying to spoil this movie for me. A lot of people posted in my comments section different things, just being like, hey, I'm spoiling the movie for you. All of that ended up being wrong. All of it did. And I was pleasantly surprised at what the hell happened in the third act. The third act was definitely my favorite since Scream 4, and I would have to think about where I rank it. But I think it's just kind of a sigh of relief when you get to the third act and they do the reveal and you go, okay, cool, this feels good, you know what I mean? Because with Scream 6, the more that I've watched that movie, it's the reveal that really does that movie in, where you go, oh man, it's the brother and sister and the dad, and it just kind of feels a little bit weird. At least that's my personal opinion, but with Scream 7, it all felt very earned, and I cannot wait to watch it again, to watch how all of these things connect and watch all of the little details throughout the movie that you missed, because that's also the fun of a Scream movie, is watching how the characters that actually were in on it are interacting throughout the entire thing, you know what I mean? Or characters or character. But man, that was a very long-winded way of saying I absolutely loved Scream 7. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I'm going to give my star rating, and my friends, there were a couple things keeping it away from a perfect score, but it's about as perfect as it gets. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I got no doubt about that. But at this point, I will turn it over to you guys. Please let me know your thoughts about Scream 7 down below. I would love to hear from you. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? What was your favorite part of it? Please hesitate from spoilers in the coming week or so and wait for people to watch this thing. But please let me know what you thought about the movie, and if you enjoyed it, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I have a lot of fun reactions and reviews on the way, but more than anything, my friends, I hope you're out there keeping up the good vibes, and I will see you in the next video, all right? Peace!